So welcome to the March 15th question and answer session for the Technology Career Accelerator Plus Bootcamp, all kind of created by me and hosted by me in partnership with Tech is the New Black. We are here today. We're going to get started probably first week of April, returning to covering the material covered in the actual bootcamp. This is more of a Q&A session. So we'll have this week, the 22nd and the 29th of March to kind of have QA sessions for those who are kind of going through the material, have some preliminary questions, or maybe in, interview process or only doing the Tech Career Accelerator portion. So that's what these sessions will be for. So all of those obviously who have joined us, and we thank you for, your patronage. Thank you for all that. Thanks for having the faith and, placing in us that we will do what we say we will do, and we will. So we're going to get started today. We have a couple people who are in the program currently. Michaela, Abina, and Jalen are joining live today. So we'll talk to them a little bit, answer their questions. Anybody else who joins, obviously, we have about an hour that we're going to do this. So let's go ahead and get started. I'll just give a quick brief introduction of myself. Horace Mackey. BigTechMoney is kind of my platform. So it was based on the fact that I, been in Microsoft Salesforce and possibly a surprise soon, but, focused on big technology companies, and then kind of came with the, background. My path, if you will, is more through grad school. Went to Georgia Tech MBA. I live in Atlanta currently, so kind of local here. Started at Microsoft back in 2015. Did about a year at Salesforce Tableau. Went back to Microsoft as a sales director, running all of Latin America and the South US enterprise. Love doing it all. Love helping people get in. The foundation of how I kind of came with the program was that, while boot camps are super helpful, a lot of people have had success with them. Met up with Cyrus. He gave me some insight of kind of what he wanted to do. So, was fully on board as long as I could create the material, just because I wanted to give it from my own perspective. So everything that you see in the boot camp is, direct from me. When teaching technology, because I think it's important to have some sort of foundation and baseline. My thought process was that I can teach you a technology, and I don't need you to be, super kind of deep in the technology, but you do need to have some grasp and understanding. So I give some level of understanding of about 8 to 9 different technologies, but also give you customer success stories and applications to help you kind of understand how they're used. Because that way you can, know enough to be dangerous. And so when someone mentions something, or if there's a product topic that comes up in a job posting, you can be familiar with that. From there, my question was, all right, you get through a program and that's great. And, but where is the kind of career services, right? Because if you've heard me talk about it, career services was the thing that led me to decide, to go to Georgia Tech over Emory. I started, doing the post school things before I actually started class. You may have heard that story. So that's how I kind of came up with the Tech Career Accelerator component, right? Which is, we called it Personal Networking Accelerator at first, because I believe the networking and communication amongst people in the industry, people who work at these different companies, is super important. It's been super helpful throughout my whole career. Just the more people the more relationships you can build, the better opportunity you have to be able to make a connection with people to, get into the industry, right? So with that, decided to kind of create a version of that. And that's how we came up with the first Personal Networking Accelerator, and now, Tech Career Accelerator. And the thought behind that was just, how do we put these people who have now made this additional investment to either change careers, advance in their careers from maybe a smaller tech company to a larger one? Because again, my focus has been the bigger technology companies, because that's my experience. How do we put them in position, put them in, conversation and connection with people, right? I tell people, like, you're not going to go to a doctor and expect them to talk to you for free. You're not going to go to a lawyer or a psychologist or psychiatrist, right? Anyone who's been a professional who earns money, you're not going to go to them and just be like, hey, let me get an hour on the house, right? So kind of created this program where I don't pay people to give referrals in any way, shape, or form. You have to earn that based on your conversation and interactions. But what I do pay them for is their time, right? I got people who make $300,000, $400,000, $700,000 a year, and I'm like, hey, can you just do me a favor and give me an hour? No, I pay them for their time to interact with people who, are in you all's position. It's your chance that through the boot camp, through the preparation that we provide and offer, through the different sessions, that you are able to be in connection with somebody who has the network, who has the capability to put you in an advantageous position to get to what your dream destinies are, right? Whether it be Microsoft or Google or Amazon or wherever, right? So that's kind of how all this was born. So again, appreciate you all for your participation in it. So I want to open it up to questions, right? You can kind of, before you ask your questions, feel free to introduce yourself, what your background is, where you are, where you're trying to go. And then there's somebody right there. And then from there, we can kind of, start the question and answer. All right.
All right. I'll go ahead and jump in. Thank you, Horace, for this course. I really appreciate it, man. I'm loving it so far. So my question is, my name is Jalen Javier. I currently work as a technical writer. I've been in the profession strictly as a technical writer for a little over 2 years. And so my question was with tech sales, because I know that you were referencing us getting, a lot of knowledge and really being really versed in the different products. My question was, are we looking to be as versed as a person who would be, like in IT, where we're the person like implementing it into the company, or with tech sales, will we be versed, very versed in it, but enough to explain it to the company and how they would need to implement it to help them with whatever solution they need?
Yeah, that's a great question. And Justin, welcome. We see you, but we're flowing, brother. So we're just going to keep going here. So that's a great question. So I like to kind of break down the opportunity into maybe 4 main roles or categories, if you will. So one would be an account executive. Next would be a sales specialist. Next would be a technical specialist or sales engineer. And then we'll get into how different companies have different terminology. And then last is something I call customer success, right? So there are kind of 4 different disciplines there, right? So let me kind of cover them. Account executive, again, it varies company to company, but typically an account executive focuses on relationship and will have some sort of technical or sales specialist that supports them in delivering to the customers. Now, there are some companies where an AE actually does the firsthand selling as well, right? Salesforce is one of those companies, right? They'll still have someone who goes more technical, but AE typically at most companies is going to be relationship based, focused on getting and kind of discovering the opportunities at the customer. And then I'll take a slight step backwards when we talk about sales, right? Everybody gets kind of afraid of sales and they're like, oh, I don't want to interact with customers and all this. And I get it, right? Like some people want to work in the background. I don't criticize that, but I know where the money is, right? Customers have it, so they can put it into your pocket. So that's why I'm always been a fan of that. But if you look at sales, not like used cars, which is what everybody automatically thinks of when they hear sales. If you look at sales more like problem solving, you're looking for the problems that exist within the customer accounts, right? Whether it's in their operations or in their finance department or in their marketing department or in their, whatever, HR, wherever the problems exist at the customer, your job as a salesperson in any capacity is to find where are those problems and how does the software solution that I represent in my company, how does it solve the problem that I'm looking for, right? And if you take that approach, then it doesn't become this kind of, oh, I'm just trying to push some software on somebody or some solution on somebody, right? It becomes, oh, I can actually go solve their problem and it's win-win because the solution I offer solves the problem that they have that they will then pay for, that then pays me, right? If you think of it in that capacity, now you're not this pushy salesperson, right? And then there's levels to it, right? You have the SDRs, which actually is covered in the course too, SDR, BDR, sales or business development rep, if anybody's unfamiliar. And those are the people who kind of reach out to the accounts to prospect and look for the opportunities and ask about the problems. Me as an AE and other companies, I would kind of train and prepare my SDR, BDR on what to look for so that we could be more efficient, right, in the process, and they can find out what it is that I'm looking to solve, right? Conversations are great, but not if they're not kind of directed into my product solution set. So going from AE, I kind of covered that. Next, we'll talk about sales specialist. So sales specialist has a little bit more depth of knowledge when it comes to the product set. I am a believer that in any role you should have, I'm not saying 400 level, right? 100 level is basic, 200 is a little bit more than basic, 300, you're becoming an expert, 400 is the expert, all right? So my preference is that minimum you should have 100 level on everything. I prefer 200. And the reason is, I actually spoke about this recently in an interview. Having 200 level knowledge about something typically can get you through most conversations. And when you are in these sales processes or sales cycles, I like to cut out a cycle if I can. And what I mean by that is, think about it like this. If me and, the VP of infrastructure are having a conversation about something and, talking, he asked me a question, or one of his reports asked me a question, and then I have to put it on pause, set up another meeting to get more technical depth versus being able to answer the question right there. Now we don't have to align schedules again. I don't have to bring in resources, possibly miss a meeting, right? By having more knowledge of things, or even the ability to pull the knowledge on something, right? We have all this AI, we might as well use it. Uh-oh, somebody else. Then we are able to cut down the sales cycles. And to me, that's something that, helps us tremendously, right, to get to our goal of actually completing the sale. All right, so going back to a sales specialist, I like a sales specialist to have maybe that 200 level knowledge, 300 if possible. Technical specialist sales engineers should have that 400 level knowledge. And then from there, the other role. So let's talk about sales engineer and technical specialist. Again, they are more of a support for an AE or a sales specialist, and they may do some presentations, right? I'm of a different mind that sales engineer, technical specialists are not entry-level roles. That is my own opinion. And the reason is because you have to have some depth of knowledge of a product or a competing product, right? So like you want to go work at Google in the cloud, business, and you came from AWS. If you have a deep knowledge of AWS, but maybe not Google, you're still an asset because you can help us sell against it. And then I know that you demonstrated the ability to learn depth in a product. So I know you can learn it with us as well. All right. So that's technical specialists. Last is customer success, which I think a lot of people fall into. Maybe you're afraid of customers for whatever reason. I don't knock it, but customer success is still sales, but it's more of a post-sales, I like to call it. So post-sales means the transaction has been complete, and now you're just helping the customer with deployment and, product delivery, right? But there's also opportunities that as you're helping them get implemented or you're helping them deliver, that there's other sales opportunities that come up that you can now tell the AE or sales specialist, right? And an example of that is that, I'm getting a little technical here, but like when you're selling AI, Microsoft AI, for example, you have to have your SharePoint environment set to a certain way. Like it has to be prepared, protected, labeled, auto-labeled, governance and all that stuff. If you're doing an AI implementation, right, as a customer success person, and then you see some opportunities that SharePoint is maybe out of date, or they're pulling from different data sources, it's not centralized, then you go back to the AE like, hey, their data sources are a mess. Maybe we can upgrade and sell them a better SharePoint situation, right? That's just a simple example. You don't have to sell it firsthand, but you're still technically in the sales realm, right? And so when you consider and think about it from that perspective, it's still sales, but it's not frontline, pressuring sales or whatever you feel like. Your quota and all that stuff is maybe not pending, and it's more of a passive sales because it's a post-sales situation. Okay. Welcome, Patrick. We already flowing, brother, so we'll catch you soon. So yeah, those are going to be kind of your four main pillars, if you will, of the sales organization. Hopefully, Jalen, I answered your question there.
Yeah, that was
Um,
great. No, that was great. Thank
yeah,
you.
hopefully that overview kind of gives everybody level set of where you want to be, because that to me is kind of where it is. And then the other kind of main overarching thing and why I kind of promote the sales stuff too is because for me, sales is the easiest entry point into organizations as well, right? Depending on what your background is, what you're transitioning from, right? Sales is where, you can't just fall backwards into a software engineer role, right? It takes a lot of kind of training and schooling and stuff like that. So, and not that you fall backwards into sales, but there's a lot more entry point opportunities. All right. All right. Hopefully that answers a lot of questions. All right. Michaela, I know you have a question.
Hi, Horace. Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Michaela. So, Horace, my question is so, yesterday I had an interview. This is a sales, well, a little bit my background. I'm a chemical engineer, and I have a little bit of sales experience with direct sales. So, yesterday I had an interview for a sales engineer, sales and application engineer role, and it's in the measurement instrumentation field, so not software. And I just want to get your insight and maybe your thoughts on going into that industry versus like a software as a service industry. And you also mentioned that sales engineer is not really entry level. So since I don't have that experience yet, that is what I want to do in the tech sales arena. So I just want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, this is actually a great one. So you do have it, right? As a chemical engineer, you do have a technical background, right? And with what they're asking you to sell, you deal with that, I would imagine, almost every day, right, in your job. So that's a great example of career transition, meaning you're a subject matter expert on something. So here's another analogy. It'd be like a teacher or a school administrator going into tech sales, but you're selling to education, right? Everybody thinks like, oh, I have to have all this technical knowledge. I just believe that you should have some technical knowledge, right? But at the same time, if you are the customer and you have thorough knowledge of the customer, so it's like if you know the answers to the test, right? And the test being how do I sell into educational institutions and organizations, right? You may not have had or demonstrated that, oh, I'm this great salesperson, but I do know your customer and what they're looking for when you want to transact. And here's what I've seen. I see salespeople come in, they mention this, they focus on that. And that's not at all, what drives us to use our budget. It's this, this, and this. So I know that I know how to sell to what I currently am. And that's what your situation is similar to, right? So I think it's a good opportunity for you, right? And where, yeah, obviously I'm biased to software and products like that. If that opportunity exists, is meeting kind of the goals that you're looking for, I think we can still help you, obviously through this process and program. But that's how I want you to think about it, right? Is that you're the customer, you've done what they want you to support the sales team with, right? So you are like a huge asset. That's how you would sell yourself. I wish I talked to you the day before the interview instead of the day after. But if you get some follow-ups and the next steps, then we can kind of talk it through. To me, when people, and I've done this with some others, if you're already in a process, I don't want you to stop, drop, and wait until this is done. I'd rather we jump in. You got to let me know, obviously, but I'd rather jump in, help you kind of through the process, right, and get you to success as quickly as possible, right? So let's definitely talk offline. Just ping me, and we can kind of discuss, see what the results were. But no, this will still be helpful. Does that make sense? What I'm saying, how we can apply it?
Yeah, it does. It does. Thank you.
Yep. All right, Justin and Patrick, welcome. You're both on mute, so if you have any questions.
I have a question, Horace.
Yep.
Yeah, my name is Sabina. I've been in financing for over about 10 years, and basically, I'm looking to transition into tech sales. I wanted to know how how to sell the product. I understand the product, but how can you go more in depth and on how to sell the product from the beginning to the end? Like, what is the process for account executive?
Yeah, that's a great question. So from an account executive perspective, typically, like I said, the role of an account executive is to focus on the relationship, right? So you want to be focused on the high level relationships that exist within the account. Vice presidents, senior vice presidents, chief information officer, chief information security officer, chief financial officer, right? They got the money. You want to focus yourself at that level, right? Reason being is because you need people who can sign off on the checks to make it, straight and to the point. Now, again, there's different companies, different processes, but I'll give you a general one. Let's say you got a BDR, SDR who finds an opportunity, talks to somebody at the customer, gets you a meeting set up. You talk to that person, you want to uncover the problems that exist, right? You want to understand, knowing what your company sells, right? You want to ask questions that uncover problems that your solution set will solve. Got it? From there, once you start to hear that and discover those problems, customer discovery, they call it, right? Once you discover those problems, then you need to, and you'll see this kind of through the MEDIC process. That's one of the courses. Once you kind of discover those problems, then next you want to find somebody who has the authority to make the decisions, right? On if they're going to go with your solution or not. Based on how technical it is, sometimes you may have to do like demos and instances of putting the solution in their environment so they can test it out, make sure it works and meets the requirements, things like that. Typically, though, you're going to find the problem, find out who can pay to solve the problem or sign off to pay to solve the problem, find you a champion, someone who will get behind what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish, right? And then from there, it's about, do you get them to buy in? Once they've kind of proven it, and I'm being very high level in general because obviously every company is going to be different. Every company's selling and every company buying is going to be different. So I'm trying to keep it high level. But once you establish there's a problem, once you establish there's a budget, that's a huge component, right? Like their fiscal year is January to December. Typically, they've already made their budget, but sometimes they allow for flexibility or they allow budget to solve the problem that you're looking at, right? It may not have been for you, but it could have been, hey, we got an issue with X. Here's the budget to solve X, right? So once you establish that there's a budget, there's a decision maker, with the authority to make the decision, that there is a concrete problem that you can solve, that you can demonstrate that you can solve that problem. Then it's more like kind of heading towards negotiation, right? What is the right fit? How many seats or how much capacity or consumption, again, based on the product you're selling, is necessary. Then from there, once you kind of check those boxes, somebody's willing to pay for it. Well, obviously, first discover that there's a need, right? There's a need. BANT is a good one to know. Budget, authority, need, timeline. So once there's a budget, right? Money is the most important part because if they can't pay for it, what are we talking about? Authority is the person who can sign off on it. The need is that it needs to get solved, right? Because what is the easiest thing for customers to do? Nothing. They don't have to pay for nothing. They don't have to change nothing. They don't have to work for nothing, right? So you have to create the need, right? And creating the need is driven by the value that your solution offers, right? If I could help 100 people save 5 hours a week and I pay those people on average $40 an hour, right? Which means they make $80,000 a year. So then I would say that's $40 an hour times 5 hours a week. So now we're at $200 per week per person. So then I have to multiply by the people, multiply by the weeks. That becomes a really big number. And as long as what you're selling is way less than that number or half or something like that, now you're having a discussion, right? So if I'm saying, oh, I'm saving you $2 million, this costs you $600,000, most people will take that. Now, time, I'll be honest, saving time is not I have 3 different levels. Save time, save money. Okay, I'm listening. Make money, right? Think about those 3 different levels. You can make me money As long as I'm making more money than I spend with you, that's worth it. Usually you want some multiple effect of that. If you're saving me money, and it's, again, a multiple of 2 to 1, I'm saving twice as much as I pay you, that's worth it. Saving time takes a little bit more convincing, right? But I can think of a particular customer that overworks their employees. So when I say, oh, well, you're saving this much in pay, right? Well, they're on salary. I don't care. Yeah, but they hate the company for doing this. And now those 5 hours, if you're going to make them work the same hours, reallocate those 5 hours a week per person per week to something else. And now they can make money in another way or save money in another way, right? That's what selling is. What I'm talking about right now is a sale, right? These are the conversations that you have. It's not, hey man, I got this software. You want to buy it? No, I don't want to buy it. Come on, man, buy it. That's not how it works. Like, people think that's what goes on. No, it's high level conversations that impact a business. And then when I talk about the A in that, authority, the reason that you focus on high level people for authority, like I mentioned, VPs, directors, SVPs, senior vice presidents, C-level people, is because you have to focus on people who have that macro widespread view of an organization, right? There's a company I worked for, I won't say. Company I worked with, I won't say, but the person was a system admin who I was having a conversation with. And I remember when I first talked to him, I was like, my question to the team was, why are we talking to him? Right? It's no knock on that guy as an individual. It's a knock on him as his role in the organization. He's a system admin. He manages the servers. No offense, but I should never talk to him. I'll tell you why. That dude, I made a proposal, long story short, made a proposal. This dude made a PowerPoint presentation to tell me no, that they weren't going to buy something. He was very lucky that we were in a virtual situation. Like, bro, just tell me no in an email, dog. Like, what are we doing? You're an idiot for making a PowerPoint and calling a meeting to tell me no. But again, that's my fault for even continuing to have a conversation where he was involved. He was empowered by his side of the table. That's a whole different story. But the reason you don't do that is because there's a couple reasons. One, he doesn't have the vision to do what's best for a multi-$100 billion organization. He's a system admin. He looks at the servers. He doesn't know what's best for the company. He'd rather shuffle the licenses around to save a couple $1,000s, right? But then somebody turns on the software and their license has been moved to somebody else because they want to save a couple $1,000s. And who knows what the importance of, and think about how many times that happens, right? It's literally like a random, distribution. So that's why you don't talk to people. And I'm not saying it in a rude way, but it's true. You don't talk to people who don't have perspective of the organization, right? Because two things. That's one reason, because they're idiots. But two, because they are focused on their own job and saving their job, either saving their job or they don't want to do more than they currently do. Oh, I just do this every day. I'm comfortable doing this. Hey, man, now the other people don't have access to the tools because you just want to move them around and then somebody's going to turn it on and wonder where their stuff is. I mean, they should have used it instead of letting it go stale for 90 days. You're an idiot. Your company's IT budget is $1 billion. You talking about $600? But that's how he thinks. And that's not his fault. That's my fault for talking to him or whoever, started the conversation with him. You see what I'm saying? Like, there's people who, especially, at Microsoft, there's a lot of stuff that we did, that we created. Think about how passwords used to get done, right? When you lost your password at work, what would happen? You got send in a ticket. Somebody had to reach out to you, get on the screen share, they'll reset it, or they'll reset it and send you a temporary. And then we came up with something called self-service password reset, where you just hit a button and then you know how it works. They'll send you something, you validate it, prove that it's you, and now you can reset your password and it's done. But there was a person whose job was to reset your password. So when that concept of self-service password reset comes, what is the first thing that person thinks? I'm going to lose my job. They don't think, oh, let me go do something better for my organization. They just think, oh, I'm going to lose my job. That's why you don't talk to those people, because they will save their own job for the benefit of the entire, for like the detriment of the entire organization. Now everybody can just get their password when they lose it right away. They want to, no, everybody come through me. I want you to come through me, and I'll do it for you. We do 186 of these a day. No, that's okay. I'll do it. Well, your ticket log is crazy backed up. Oh no, I'll do it. No. You see what I mean? Like, and that's what I talk about. That's why the BANT is so important, because you cannot talk to people who will self-maintain or self-savage, self-survive, whatever you want to call it. You can't talk to people like that, because they're always going to make the decision that benefits them first and not the organization as a whole. And your job as a salesperson is to help that organization be more productive, more impactful, drive more revenue, save money, all those things, right? And that's why you have to focus at high levels. All right. I know that was a really long answer, and my answers are so long I forget the question sometimes, but I know it was on track. So, all right. Abina, did that answer, or do you still want some more?
Yeah, that was an amazing answer, and you were spot on, because I know I have worked closely with several system admins, and you are absolutely right with come through me. On the piggyback side on that question, how do you get around of the gatekeepers? Because I have heard stories of system admins being like gatekeepers, because it's like you got to come. I don't know, it's some type of ego trip or whatever. It's like
It is.
you got to come through them before you get to the next person or all that stuff. How do you work around that?
You have to be. That's where your discovery is important, right? To find the problems, right, before you talk to them. But once you have those problems, which you have to get that admin to think, I am a big challenger salesperson, right? Challenger sales is in the course. You'll see challenges where you push against people, right? Like, I don't have any fear of anything. So there's people you have to push, right? And what I do, like, one of the statements I like to make, is like, I operate from the perspective of your company's shareholders, right? And I'll say this in a meeting. I'll say, if I'm a shareholder in your organization, and I know that the opportunity for you to buy this solution was on the table, but you made the decision to do this, right? Even though I know it costs this much or save this much, or, whatever scenario is, and you put it on there as an objective shareholder of their company, and you say, if you stood in front of shareholders, would you justify your decision? It gets real uncomfortable, right? The one that I really kill it on with the making people uncomfortable, and this still aligns, Amina, is that you get everybody with this AI stuff now, right? Oh, we don't want AI. Excuse me? You don't what? Oh, we don't want AI. Why? Oh, because, blah, 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 blah. So I tell a story about Blockbuster Video and Netflix. I want you all to answer this question. What is the astounding technology that Netflix used to put Blockbuster out of business?
I'm going to say the mail, because I saw the video.
It was the mail. The mail. So I tell people, there were over 9,000 Blockbuster Video locations at one point. Netflix launched in 1998. They got to their first 1 million customers in 2005. Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy in 2010. Streaming didn't launch until 2007, but it was not the same as it is today. So 5 years is what I say, right? You say 12, whatever. It took 5 years for the mail to put them out of business. They had 9,000 locations. That customer you're talking to probably doesn't have anywhere near that presence nor that market share. And the mail put them out of business. What do you think AI is going to do? Would you play against me in a chess tournament if I had AI and you didn't? No. Play a card game if I had AI and you didn't? Would you let me take a test and you take a test and, whoever wins, but I got AI and you don't? What would you say I was doing? Would you let your kids use AI in school? What are they doing if they use AI? What do they call it? Cheating, right? So you have a chance to cheat. I'm selling you the cheat. There's no law against this. You're saying no. Do you think your competitor is going to call you up tomorrow and be like, hey, we're going to start using AI, so you all should probably go ahead and do it too? Is that what's going to happen? So if it took 5 years for Netflix to put Blockbuster out of video with the mail, how long is it going to take your competitor to put you out of business with AI? And then you're going to go tell your employees that you just didn't want it. When they lose their jobs and you got to, shut the doors, you're going to be like, oh, yeah, but we just didn't want AI. That's why we didn't do it. You get real uncomfortable. Like I had a dude sit there and be like, because their chief legal officer was telling them that they couldn't use AI. And at the end of that, he was like, you think you could come to the building and talk to him about this? You know what I mean? Because it's like people just make these decisions just because, right? It's not founded in anything. Oh, I don't know what AI is, so I'm gonna just, nobody at this whole company can use it because I don't know what it is or I don't know how to control it. All right, man, just shut the doors now then. Because competitor down the street, they're going to start using it. And guess what? It has a multiple effect of how quickly it works. And usually I usually say this after we've shown them all the stuff that gets easier, using AI versus a regular person. Because I call it the human multiplier, right? Person is one. This is very nerdy of me, but I made a formula that if you are one, right? Each employee is considered one, and then to the exponent, right? Because it's you times your employee times the other one times the other one. That's your impact, right? So you raise it to the exponent. If you all are just one, right? Some people are less, some people are a little bit more, but on average, you're just one. Your impact is one. Raise it to the exponent of 1,000 employees, right? What's the answer? Still one. Doesn't matter how many times you multiply it. That's your current output. But if your competitor takes AI and applies it to all their employees and gets them using it, and say they go to 1.3, so they're doing 30% more than what they were doing. I don't know if you've used it, but like you write an email and you get your AI to fix the email, or you looking up and doing some research and you get the AI to do the research, or you're trying to project a plan or a business model or something, you get the AI to do it. Like how quickly build a PowerPoint, build an Excel sheet for you. Let's say it's 30%, you're 30% better. So that's 1.3. And then you raise that to the exponent. If anybody got a calculator to do it, you'll see how big that number gets. When they start using it, there becomes a gap, right? And that gap, it's not a small, it's like this increment that you just can't even catch up with. So if they start using it 6 months before you do, now you have to try and catch up. Probably not going to happen. You see what I'm saying? Like, this is what this is selling, Jalen, right? Like, you hear the way I'm saying this, right? And I'm not sitting here begging you to do anything. I'm showing you the outcome potential between doing nothing, which most people like to do, and something where it's like, all right, yeah, it's expensive, but we got to figure it out. We got to get a plan, right? And that's what your job as a salesperson, account exec, sales specialist, whatever, is to help these customers, right? So that's where this is. All right. We're already through 40 minutes. All right. Other question, Abina, hopefully I'm still answering.
Yes, that makes sense. Thank you so much, Horace. Greatly appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, and let me just put a bow on it for you, right? You have to make the case to the higher level execs of, if you think your doors can't close because of whatever you're selling, right? Like, you could be wrong, right? So you have to kind of bring that to their visual, right? Like, whether it's I'm trying to think of something, CRM, right? Like you're managing your customer set, right? And they're using an advanced CRM, or there's an advanced option, and then there's like their homegrown or whatever built way, right? You just have to show the impacts to people who can have that perspective, right? Who have the perspective organization wide. You say, all right, this is where you are. This is where you can be. And ideally is going to either make money, save time, right? Figure out where that is. Hopefully it's in the make money, save money. And then now here's how, my solution will help you. Here's what I'm willing to do. And then again, giving some level, like Michaela, you start talking about the technical impact of, how their product affects chemical engineers and people who use those materials on a daily basis. Like because there's a difference, right? Like you use some stuff that's some, equipment that's good and some that's awful, right? And you think about how many times it happens. What is that cumulative impact of having something better, even if it costs more, right? That's all you're really doing, right? And it doesn't always cost more. Sometimes it costs less. You never know, right? One of the things we would see all the time, Google Workspace. I'm sure people have used those tools before, right? Compared to like Microsoft 365 and Outlook and all that. It is not the same. It's not even close. And there's customers who have gone and got the free Google stuff because they get it with cloud, and they come right back and start paying for it, right? So free is not always better. Lowest price is not always better, So the key is to figure out how do you drive the value. So, all right, keep them coming. What other questions we got?
Hi, Horace.
Hey.
Oh, someone else. You can go ahead, Patrick.
Okay. Good morning, Horace. So I'm arriving to the party a little bit late. Apologies.
It's recorded, though. You can watch it.
Okay. So as far as positions that I've been seeing in tech companies, I've been seeing a lot of stuff in account executive positions.
Yep.
And just kind of transitioning from the world of project management. Would you suggest for somebody to kind of go in at that level, or should they kind of move in at the SDR, BDR level, kind of starting out?
Yeah, so great question. So let me give some perspective on that. All right. I think you have to, and this is for everybody, you have to align kind of what is your goal, right? And that's why I've updated kind of our questionnaire. It's like, how much do you currently make? How much do you want to make? And everybody's going to say, oh, I want to make 200, 800, $9 million, right? I get that. Entry level earnings that will be acceptable, right? If you look on my Instagram page, that Big Tech Money, you'll see I do like 7 or 8 company intro, like entry level, early in career, and they're all like $150,000 to $160,000 or more, right? I think that's a great way to start. Now, if you're making 200, yeah, that may not be the way to go. But again, don't get caught up in title, right? Like I say it all the time, and it may become a reality. There's a priority you have to have. Do you want a title or do you want money? I want money. I do not care about title, right? You think you want to promote, but I just talked to a guy who's an AE, senior AE. I'm not going to say company or anything, but the guys told me in the last 4 years, he's made $3 million. He's an AE. I called my boy, who's also a manager at Microsoft or director at Microsoft. I was like, how long would it take us to make 3 million? The answer is like 6 to 8 years. Boy made it in 4. Right? I bring that up because, again, if you could be an SDR and make $160,000, or you could be an AE and make 80, which one you want to do? See what I'm saying? So that's how I focus my searches, right? I look for what makes the money that I know is what people, this is why my page name is Big Tech Money, right? It's a double entendre. focuses on big tech and the money that comes with it. Focuses on money. Because that's all I care about, right? These companies are not loyal to you. They will not show up to your funeral. They will fire you or lay you off, as you can see. Do not do the same. Do not give loyalty to something that will never give. That's a life lesson. Message, right? Like, don't give loyalty to something that won't give loyalty to you, right? Don't get caught up in title. Now, if you're like, oh, no, I want to be an AE. I want to tell this person I'm an AE at this company. Yeah, that's cool. Go for it, right? But I kind of give direction and guidance based on getting you to earn what you want to earn, right? Meet your expectation of earning. So I would say, coming from project management, right? You have the ability to be an AE because it's kind of an orchestration kind of thing, right? Orchestrating a team more so than a project. I get that, but transferable skills that you need, we'll talk through in our interview sessions and stuff. But for me, I would say find the roles that, one, are easiest to get into, because that's the main thing. Whatever gets you into a company is the main thing, because it's easier to promote. You probably seen my videos or heard me talk about when they evaluate for any role opening, who are the first people that get preference and priority? Internal employees. Those are the people that are at the top of the list. Right after that are the people who get referrals. And the other 98% are people who are applying externally. And by then, they probably already picked their people. Right? So, long answer to your question, but I would say, figure out how important the title is, figure out how important the money is, but also ease of entry into an organization.
Got it. That answered it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Hi, Horace. I have a question about salary. Can you give your insight as to compensation when it comes to a base salary and the compensation split and commission split? Just want to hear your insight on that.
So, it's pollen time in Georgia. Let me close my door. My keyboard is covered. It's only been up for since I've been here. So, let's talk about the splits first. So you heard 50-50, 60-40, right? Things like that. What that means is that if you have a 50-50 split, then if you have a 50-50 split, that means your base salary is 50% of your on-target earnings. That's OTE when you hear it. So your on-target earnings, 50-50 split means you have a base salary of $80,000. Then your at risk is also 80,000. You add those together, right? Trying to think. I know a guy who just took a role at Stripe. He had a 60-40 split, and his base was 240, right? Yeah, I know. So that means he's got 240 at risk, 240 base, 160 at risk. You add those together, 400K is his OTE just on target, right? That's the other guy I mentioned, the 4 years and $3 million. If I had to guess, I would guess that his base was in the range of probably 200 to 220. And somehow he got to 7 figures last year, he told me. So I know he's on a 50-50 split. So that means his on target would be 400 to 440. But because he did 200+%, right? 212, he told me, he said with spiffs, I know the accelerators, I'm just not going to say it because I don't want to give out too much information, but it accelerated from 1 to 135, and then 35 to 200 is another accelerator that's actually less than the 1 to 135. And then above 200 is just 1 to 1, but he did 7 figures last year. So again, I say, it really depends, but hopefully I'm answering the question is that, and then when you see the hourly, which you should, anytime you see an hourly rate, people think, oh, I don't want to work hourly. Hourly means there's overtime. So, but also when you see an hourly rate, you just multiply it times 2,080. That's 52 40-hour weeks, right? typically 2,000 for rule of thumb. So if I see $40 an hour, I think it's about $81,000 a year, right? And then, you know, you take that, whatever that is, 80,000, and then double that to 160, and that's how you figure out what the OTE is, right? So your bottom should be in that $40 an hour range, or 80,000, you know, $60,000 to $80,000 base. It's up to you. But I say this: you make 50,000, and then there's an opportunity to make 95 to get you into a company. What are we talking about? That's almost a double of what you make. Oh, but it's not 160. All right, then go get the 160 job. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't really mean do that. You should take that other job, right? Because again, if you go in, you're making 50. Let's say it takes you a year to get to 160 job, right? But you could have been making 95. You could have been internal, so you get an easier promotion, more opportunity, more experience, right? Be strategic in the way that you seek your, you know, progression. So, yeah, hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, it does. And can you also give your thoughts on 100% commission, like no base salary?
Don't do it.
Okay.
Unless it's just like some ungodly, you know, opportunity. Like if you say, they say it's 100% commission, you know, all right, well, how much can I make? Usually if it's too good to be true, it's because it's impossible to sell, right? But there's no scenario I would take a, you know, 100% commission unless it was at some super established company, which they're not going to offer that. But, you know, so typically I'm going to say no, right? We can talk about it offline. You show it to me, but typically no. Other questions?
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear me. I had a question.
Yep.
You mentioned the SDR role, and just like as far as like it being a good entry point for sales, and obviously higher salary. Because really, right now, where I'm personally at is seeking more like higher salary.
Yep.
And so I'm just kind of now would that be more so like entry level? But or if you have experience, would you go for something a little more higher level? Because I'm just kind of wanted to know because at this point I do have experience in sales. I've ran a company for like 5 years before I actually got into tech, and
Right.
kind of work with the company I'm at now. I've been there for 2 years, and honestly, I'm doing like 4 jobs, and I should be making more money. Just to be honest with you, straight up.
Yeah. So kind of similar to the answer I gave, you know, to Patrick, right? It's that you just have to decide like what your priority is, right? For you, it sounds like it's easier role with better compensation, right?
Right.
And that's not an impossible thing, you know, transitioning into this industry. I think the key is going to just be, you know, finding the proper match, right? Like, so we just need to understand, like, what is your kind of target goal, right? And like I said, I like people to don't be realistic, just be reasonable is a better way to say it, right? You're like, oh, I'm doing this, I'm making 50, but I want to make 300. And it's like, yeah, everybody does. You know what I mean? So like, right. But if you can go to the SDR role, let's pull one up here. Go to an SDR role and make, you know, 140, right? But you're making 80. Like, what are we talking about? You know what I mean? Right. So I think it's just being kind of judicious in the opportunities as they present themselves, and then making sure that, you know, where you're going to is going to, you know, put you on the path of where you want to be, right? Like titles are great, but, you know, even in a process, I was talking to a leader at that same company with the guy, you know, with the 4-year, 3 million thing. And he's like, yeah, no, ICs make more. And I'm like, why would I want to be a manager?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, my daughter's college is $58,000 a year. So I need money. I don't care about what you call me. Right. Just call me rich and we're good. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's how I would look at that. I think you have to, you know, focus on the thing that's easiest to help you get in too, right? Like that to me is also a big component, right? And it should also be like almost be like a 50-50 split of what is, you know, least path of least resistance to get in. And then, so I'm just pulling up some jobs. I just want to look for them for you. Where are you located? What area of the country?
Miami.
Miami.
And I currently, like right now, work for Rumble. But really, like I got in doing customer success, but I'm basically doing the account executives jobs because Frank, the one I'm working with, he's just not good at his job.
What's your
And
title though?
it's customer success management, business development management.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, that's interesting because you have like that experience. So what about, especially in Miami, bro? Like, what is it? Kaseya? It's what the stadium's named, the arenas are named after. Is it Kaseya?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Like they're always hiring, right? So I would definitely look at that place because they are, they're aggressively hiring, and I think it's good. I don't think it's a destination, but I do think it's a great place, like to transition. It's like testing, proving ground kind of thing.
Right.
Let me see here, business development. So I would say definitely look at that. So west, east. All right, let's see. So I'm looking at Salesforce, BDRs. Yeah, so their salary, it says New York, and they only say New York because I've mentioned this before. Only certain states require you to put the salary range, right? So a BDR for Salesforce right now is saying 55 to 75, basically. So if you split the difference, 65, then 50-50 will be 130. I don't know if that works for you, but that kind of gives you an idea of what they're doing. Now, if you can show in your process, for example, right, you could talk about the fact that you do AE work and give solid examples, right? You might have to do some, massaging of the truth on your documentation, right? To say like, look, like what I did one time, I put like AE, it wasn't interim AE because I was backfilling for some roles.
Right.
And it was facts, right? And then I had the examples to be able to walk people through, right? So there's different ways you can do that to talk about what you do. Because there's no, and I want everybody to hear this, right? There's nothing, don't lie. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is there's no validation, right? Even when you go to a background check, they're just verifying that you were at a company from the dates that you say, right? Because like, even if I wasn't at a company, I'm not going to tell my next job that I'm not at that company. Maybe I quit, maybe I got fired, whatever. Either way, I'm not going to tell them, right? Because one, legally, it puts me at a disadvantage when I'm negotiating, right? Because if I say, think about candidate comes to you, you're like, oh, I want to hire you. If you know that they don't have a job and now you're negotiating, you're going to be like, what's your other option? It puts the potential employee at a disadvantage. So I would never mention that. I'm bringing this up because for you, right, there's no step that's going to be like, how do I validate that he was not an AE?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So what they're going to base it on is the interaction and, you giving an example or explaining to them the AE work that you did, in an interview, blah, 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 right? So I'm not saying lie, but if you're doing the work and it's just not in your title, I talk about what you do versus what your title is, right?
Right.
And you can talk about, like, I've done all three of these things, right?
Right.
So it's something to think about.
Okay. Yeah, because I have the whole process documented. I got my numbers. Like I document everything. So
Yeah.
And right now I'm making 95. But honestly, like for what I do, I should be they can't really function without me for specific areas right now.
Well, go leverage that internally.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I don't know why, look, if you know your value at somewhere, like don't undersell yourself, right? You don't get this time back, right? We don't get time to redo our careers, right? And so, Kaseya, it's called Kaseya. Dude, it's all over Miami. I'm surprised. Yeah. They're I think the stadium is called Kaseya Arena, maybe.
Yep, it's called that.
Yep. So they do a lot of hiring. I would check what they pay. I don't look at them. I know of them, but I don't like dig too deep in them because they, you got to be in Miami, so it's kind of limiting from that perspective. But yeah, check that out. Like I said, there's opportunities out there, and like I said, if you can prove that you have experience, go for it. And then here's another just advice to everyone, right? When you're looking at AE roles, so the way to look at them, and I'm going to do a better job of posting, I'm really committing to this, but like, as I explained, you have like strategic accounts. So those are the biggest accounts. You'll hear it: strategic, key, global. Like those are your biggest, largest accounts, right? At these companies, right? Those are people that need 8-10 years experience, a lot of experience to get into that. They pay the most, obviously, but you'll usually have just one customer. So that's key account, strategic account, global account. Those are at the top. Then you have enterprise. Those are part of enterprise, but they're the top side of enterprise. Then you got enterprise. Then you'll have, like, Microsoft has small, medium, corporate, which is confusing because then they also have SMB, which is small and medium businesses. If you're going to look for an AE role, but maybe you don't have a ton of, experience, look for the AE roles in the smaller organizations, right? And that's a easier opportunity for you to get in potentially, right? Because if you think about it from a company's perspective, it's like, if you have just a couple of years of experience, I'm going to trust you with my small, medium businesses more than my global account, right? So that's another way to kind of rank and, look at your, look at the way you're looking it up.
Okay.
All right. Sure I didn't miss anything here in the comments. All right. So yeah. Other question. Oh, we're actually at an hour already. So let's get one more question in, and then we'll wrap it up for today. We'll be on next week. Next week, let's do 10 a.m. next week. I'll put it in the group, or somebody can put it in there, but let's do 10 a.m. next week. I had some stuff I had to take care of today.
Question, Horace. So first thing, will it be for next week? Will it be the same link?
Yeah, same link. Yep.
Okay. Yep. Last question for me was, how valuable is it to like complete like company specific courses or like specific certifications for different products when it comes to applying for different companies? I know, of course, you can't necessarily always time when a position become open, but let's just say going through the course, it talks about Salesforce as a product, it talks about Microsoft 365. So if you went through doing those courses or certifications, like how valuable is that, going forward?
Right. Cyrus does a video about this. He says like certifications won't get you a job. And that I agree with. But I will say this. If I interview 3 people, and I'm at Microsoft, I interview 3 people, and one of them has certifications. Let's say they're all externals. One has certifications on the product set that they would be selling. And they all finished equal. I like them all equally, right? They all scored a 90 on the test. Not how we do it, but just, scored a 90 on the test. One has certifications. Who do you think I'm most likely to hire? Person with certification, because I don't have to ramp them up as much, right? So I think that, and LinkedIn has like the little badges and stuff like that, and then there are the real certifications. To me, it only helps improve you as a candidate, right? Because if you had a cloud certification, really any of them, right? Again, if you had a Google cloud certification, but you were applying at AWS and made it to final rounds, you'd be like, oh, I have a Google cloud. And you're like, oh, that seems like that wouldn't make sense. But no, one, it shows me you can understand cloud, you understand cloud principles. and now you have knowledge about one of our competitors. That's a benefit, right? So again, it's not going to be what gets you the job, but it could be what sways the decision in your favor. That's how I would say it.
Yeah. Gotcha. Thank you. That's
Yep.
great. Thank you.
Yep. All right. All right. Let me go ahead and wrap up this recording. So thank you everyone who's viewing. If you have any questions, obviously we're in the Discord and other lines of communication, LinkedIn, Big Tech Money on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube actually. So any questions, feel free to reach out, communicate. Thank you everybody here who joined. Go ahead and stop this recording.